Greetings everyone, welcome to this advance. This is from round 10 of US Chess Championship. With the white pieces, we have the man in form, Fabiano Caruana, facing off against Abhimanyu Mishra. This is going to be an epic game, so without further ado, let's start this game. Here, Fabi starts with e4, we have c5, they're going for the Sicilian, knight to f3, d6, and just d4, going for the open Sicilian, c captures, knight to f6, and here just going for this knight to c3. We have a6 going for the knight off, here we have g3. This is the Zagreb variation, and we have e5. Immediately just start attacking that knight to b3, and bishop to e7, bishop to g2, castles, and b5 now pushing those pawns all the way, and here just going for a4, challenging those queenside pawns. We have b4 pushing the knight out of the way, knight to d5, knight captures, queen captures, and here rook to a7, and now bishop to e3 was played, just challenging the rook, but just here bishop to e6, attacking the queen, and now just going for this queen to d3. We have rook to a8, and here just going for f4, and now pushing it all the way. Fabi's definitely looking for a fight here, a5, and now just going for this knight to d2, knight to c6, and just knight to c4 in this position, just challenging that weak central pawn. You're going to double up here, just get the rook here to d1, and there will be some pressure towards that pawn, so you're going to have to be a little careful. Here knight to d4 was played, and now you could go for this rook a to c1 right away in this position, and after rook to c8 you play this knight to d2, bishop to d7, knight to b3, knight to e6 now, and here after a move like f captures. The thing is that you cannot capture this knight caps on a5, because obviously you cannot capture with the queen, because the thing is that your bishop would be hanging, so but you can go for this bishop caps on a4, so that's why here you should not play that knight caps on a5. It would just ruin your position. So here after knight to d4, bishop caps on d4 was played, and now just comes this e caps on d4, and here we have knight to d2, rook to c8, and just going for this rook to f2 in this position, and here we have bishop to f6, just getting those bishop pair ready for a fight. Here we have bishop to f1, queen to b6, and just king to g2. Obviously you want your king there on that diagonal, and here we have rook to c7, knight to b3, and just bishop captures, training that, and not going for queen captures to save your pawn structure, because this would be a weak backwards pawn. So here just c caps on b3, just getting it out of the way, and here we have rook f to c8 and queen to d1. And if you look at the position, it seems like both black and white are doing fine. White is a little bit better, but maybe it's due to these backwards pawn, and white thinking that, Indian thinking that, you could somewhere along the line actually take advantage of them and ruin the structure and maybe capture those pawns, but it's a long shot. Here queen to b7, and now just comes bishop to d3, g6 now, and here just going for h4. So h4, h5 somewhere along the line is going to be an option, but other than that, white doesn't have any play. Here king to g7 was played, and you could go for this h5 right away, but the thing is that it's not going to be as accurate. Rook to c5, here you're going to play this g4, h6, and after queen to f3, g captures, and after g captures you play rook to g8, and your attack just went right out of the window, because here after king to f1, king to f8, you play bishop to c4. You don't have much. Somewhere along the line this is the breakthrough that you're looking for, but after bishop to d8, you don't have anything in this position. So here obviously not going for all of this craziness, but after king to g7, king to h2 was played, a nice calm prophylactic move, rook to c5, and here just queen to f3, king to h8, bishop to c4, and really they're going to be playing a lot of moves back and forth to be able to try maybe not go for a draw. But here Fabi definitely knows it's a drawish position, but he's not gonna be taking draw as an answer. Here rook to e8 was played, now just comes straight to e1, rook to e7 here. You could have also gone for queen to e7 here, and after this bishop to d3, just double up on the c file, and after rook e to f1, just putting all your baskets, everything in the entire basket towards the c file, rook to c1, and here after king to g2, rook caps on f1, rook captures, king to g7, and immediate h5. This would have granted you some type of security that after this, maybe you can try to push all the way and you would have some shot, because you are controlling the entire file. you don't have to worry about anything. Your pawn is controlling everything, so there is no breakthroughs happening there. At best, I think you can just try to maybe attack that b3 pawn, but other than that you don't have anything. And the thing is that queen is eyeing that, and somewhere along the line that h pawn pushing all the way would cause some problems. But here after rook to e1, rook to e7 was played, now just comes rook f to e2, queen to d7, and just king to g2, and here king to g7 was played, bishop to d3, and h5, never allowing h5 to become an option. But now what do you do here? Just calm, king to h2, queen to g4, and here both players need to make 4 more moves to be able to reach time control. So the moves that you're about to see, just mind them. Here queen to f1, king to h7, rook to f2, and just queen to d7, and here just bishop to b5, queen to g4 again, and here bishop to c4, king to h8, and after bishop to d3, king to g8 was played. And here with this, both players have reached time control. Let's see now if they they will play decent moves or not. A bishop to c4 was played, and now just king to g7 I think would have been fine, because here after rook to g2 you play queen to d7, rook g to e2, and after king to h7 you just play queen to f3, just improving the position of your pieces. After queen to e8 you play bishop to d3, and it is somewhat of an option to be able to go for this, but not really amazingly right now. You can do it a little bit later. After queen to c8 you play rook to g2, king to h6, rook to f1, and maybe you can try to push it somewhere along the line, but right now everything is being defended. You cannot really push that right now. But after bishop to c4, hey, king to h8 was played, and now just comes rook f to e2 and just king to g7, queen to f2, queen to d7. And I mean, if it was any other day, I think Fabiano would have taken a draw and he would be very happy with it. I mean, in this position it doesn't have anything. You can try to move your pieces back and forth and maybe try to go for a trade and hope that your other player makes a mistake, but it's just not going to happen. And that's why I hate. But the thing is that Fabi nearly needs a point, and I mean, if it was any other player, like maybe with Lambon or maybe with Wesley, I think he would have taken a draw. But with any player other than that, I think, including Sam, Hans, or Abhimanyu, any other player, even Ray Robson, I think he would not be interested in taking draw, because he wants to win the US Chess Championship 4 times in a row. Here, rook to f1 and just queen to g4, rook e to e1, and queen to d7. Queen to f3 was played. Now just comes queen to g4, and now finally going for this trade, because here Abhimanyu allowed it. And this is not a good move, because you can see the engine evaluation spiking here. Queen caps on g4 was played. Now just comes h captures, bishop to d3, and here we have rook e to c7, king to g2, king to f8, king to f2, bishop to g7. And the plan is simple. You want to get the king here. King to e2, bishop to f6, king to d2, and just king rook to e7 was played. And after rook to e2, bishop to g7. Now just comes this rook f to e1, just putting extreme pressure towards that e file, but everything is defended for the moment. Here, bishop to c4, king to g7, and king to d3 was played. Now putting some pressure here, but as long as that bishop is there, you don't need to worry about anything. King to h6, and here rook to f1 was played, bishop to g7, and now rook to f1, rook f to e1, and now here just going for this bishop to h8, king to d2, bishop to g7, bishop to d3, and here rook e to c7. I mean, these are all moves where you're just moving your pieces back and forth and trying to maybe wait for your opponent's mistake. But where is the mistake? That's the problem here. There is no mistake. You're gonna have to go for a breakthrough in this position, otherwise this position is just going towards a draw, and that's a problem. But here in this position, rook to f1 was played. We have king to h7, bishop to c4, and rook to e7. Here is king to d3, king to h6, and now just going for rook e to e1, bishop to f6, rook to c1. Still trying, but after rook e to c7, here rook to c2 was played. Now just comes king to g7, rook f to c1, king to f8, king to d2, and king to e7, bishop to e2, and d3, finally pushing it. I mean, he was inviting it all the way, and he was saying that, I'm not going to make this. I mean, you want to make this, be my guest, I'll be happy with the win. Here, just rook caps on c5. Now just comes d caps on c5, bishop caps on d3, bishop caps on b2, and here just going for rook to h1. And Abhimanyu thinks he has grabbed a pawn, so maybe it will be fine. But you never have this breakthrough, so that's a problem. And here, I mean, you are trying for that. Here, just bishop to d4 comes, king to e2, rook to c8, and just e5 was played. And now just comes rook to h8, not allowing that, but rook to d1 and just f6. Bishop caps on g6, finally grabbing the pawn. But here, just f caps on e5. I mean, it's at least a little bit better. Although it's like maybe you've taken away a little bit of the advantage from the white pieces, but you have to understand that it's like position is breaking through, and now you can do something with your pieces. Here, f caps on e5 was played, bishop captures h5 now, and now just going for king to f6, rook to f1, check, king to g7, and here just going for rook to f5, bishop caps on g3, finally grabbing a pawn and creating a pass pawn of your own. But here just rook caps on c5, and now that a5 pawn is also hanging. Rook to f8 was played. Nonetheless, here just going for this rook caps on a5, rook to f2, and here king to d3, rook to f3 check, king to c4, rook to f4 check, and here just going for king to d5, bishop to f2, and now just comes this rook to a6. And here you have to be a little bit worried about in this position, because you can see that you've lost a bit of the all of the pawns, basically 2 pawns. And now the trouble is, if you hadn't, I mean, if you had pushed it maybe in the last move, your position should have been fine, but you didn't, and now you want to push it. But the thing is that it's not the best move. The best move in this position is king to h6. I mean, good luck ever finding that. And like, even if you had like insane amount of time, it's just going to be very much difficult to find this move. And the problem here is that you have 1 minute on the clock, and Abhimanyu is never going to find this move in 1 minute. But here, after this bishop to e8 check, king to h7, you play king to e5, bishop to g3, rook to e6. And the thing is that that's how you want to try and win this game. Rook to f3 check, king to d5, rook caps on b3, and after bishop to g6, that could lead to mate. So you never want to actually capture the pawn. What you want to play in this position is actually rook to c3, and this is the only move, and only then you'll be able to ensure a draw. If you capture this, then after bishop to g6 check, hey, king to g7. The trouble is that after bishop to c2, and that comes with an attack towards the rook, once you move the rook, then just the thing is that you're just getting mated. There is no other way to put it. H6 check is going to come in and you're going to go back with the pieces. I'm just covering the entirety of this. Even if you go back here, you're just getting mated nonetheless. And it's a mate in 27 moves or something, but still, it's a mate nonetheless. But the thing is that nothing here happened like that. Game went a very different way after rook to a6. Here g3 was played, and now just comes this bishop to e4, rook to h4, and here after rook to g6 check. Just one trade of the rook and the entire position would collapse. Here king to h7 was played, rook to g4 check, and after this, going for this, rook caps on h4, and now the game is over. G2 was played, but here just bishop caps on g2, bishop caps on h4, but now just comes bishop to f3, and you are up. I mean, so many pawns, it's just impossible to try and survive here. After bishop to d8, king to c5 was played, and here Abhimanyu resigned the game, and Fabi got this spectacular victory in less than 100 moves. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll be coming back with some of these amazing games, so stay tuned to the channel, stay updated, and I'll be seeing you guys very, very soon. Thank you very, very much for watching.